man, like I said, I work day in and day out, but when it's time to hang out with my wife, phone to the side, or if I'm like on TikTok or something, we could be next to each other, but that time is reserved for her and I. And that time is precious to us. We could cook, we could be watching trash TV, we could be engaged in any type of activity, but it's just me and her. And in that time, it's so bonding, it's so great, and it's like an escape from like your actual day to day, you know? And what, we've been together for like 11 years. It's been like that from the start. Like most people that by 11 years they're like, I don't want to hang out with my wife or my girlfriend. No, I'm all about it. So, and she is too. And we want that time. And when we get that time, it's the best time.
Welcome to Guys That Listen. I'm Peter, and today we got special guest Lester on the pod.
What up, man? Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate it, man.
Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
I go by as Lester. Some people know me as Lester. Most people know me as DJ Les. Some people might know me as Lester Burnham, ex B-boy, DJ, producer, I do all types of things, man. So, you know.
Now, how'd you get into all that?
When I was younger, I used to play basketball in this park, and I lived in the northwest side of Chicago. And this park was pretty bad. It was full of gangbangers, right? And it was like 6 or 7 different gangs would like go to this park, and at some point they would all fight each other, shoot offs, the whole thing. Jesus. And I thought this was like regular life because you know, that's just life in Chicago. There was this Puerto Rican girl that I had a crush on, and and three of my little Vietnamese friends, Apple, Bong, and Tom, they were like, yo, we're gonna go break dance. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I don't remember how. I was young. I wasn't even like 10 yet.
Oh shit.
And we went to some like dingy basement, and they had like a piece of like linoleum, and they're like, yeah, check this out. And they started breakdancing. I was like, that's not for me.
Oh, really?
But then the girl's like, oh, I really like how they do that. And I'm like, yo, this is for me now, you know, like
Yeah.
this is what I'm going to do. So then I started practicing. All the guys that I ended up like breaking with, like they ended up like doing other things down the road. And at some point it just like never left my life. Also, I was granted access to like any party in my neighborhood or anything like that because I was just a guy that like spun on his head. Like I was non-threatening to anybody, so I actually enjoyed that too. Because if not, then it would be like this whole gang banging thing and all this other shit. So I was like, yeah, I like the privilege of just going anywhere. And they're like, oh yeah, he's just the dance guy, you know. So I stuck with it, and the more I stuck with it, the more I did it, and the longer it just kept going. So yeah, that's how it all started.
Wow, so breaking got you into music.
So essentially at some point, I tore my ACL, MCL, and I was still trying to compete. And man, at some point I just had to give it up. I had to be real with myself. Like my knees were popping out like during competitions. Like it was so bad. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to stop. And I've always had this like love for music, and I've always been around breaking music, breaks, funk, all that stuff. So it just felt like it was the right like next step for me. And I didn't think much of it, but coming into it, it was like a slow start. Well, actually, I take that back. It wasn't a slow start. I got asked to do one event. Then after that one event, like I shouldn't have even been doing it because I didn't know how to fucking DJ. So, you know, I just kind of took it because they were like, oh yeah, it's my friend's thing. You should do it. Da da da. I was like, all right, cool. From there, it was nonstop for like 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And I was traveling, like living at airports, all types of stuff. And I, like looking back in retrospect, I don't feel like it should have been like that. It should have been the natural progression of like, hey, you get better and essentially you start climbing the ranks, right? No, it was the complete opposite for me. And ended up on like really big stages where I probably shouldn't have been doing the stuff that I was doing, but because I was there because of breaking, like I had this pass to,
oh, wow,
you know? And then I knew that I had to go back and like fix a bunch of things, so I've been nonstop working on that ever since, you know? So yeah, that's kind of the progression of how we get to this place now.
Oh wow, that's a long progression. Is you know how you said that you were surrounded by gangbangers and that life that you thought was very, very normal.
Yep.
At what point did you understand that this is not okay? This is not the life that I want to live.
I mean, I've always been surrounded by gangbangers, and like, I don't know if at any point it was like, no, this is not okay. Like, internally, it always felt like, yeah, this is life. This is normal life. And until you leave like certain areas or you see like certain friends pass away, then it's like, oh shit, this is not good for me. This is not good for you. This is not good for anybody around me. And I feel like breaking was like this kind of shield where like I knew things weren't okay, but this was kind of how life was. But I wasn't really necessarily a part of any of that. You know, like I was kind of like, yeah, leave him alone. You know, like he's cool. Like you don't gotta fucking shoot at him or anything. You know,
You have to shoot at him.
yeah. So that's kind of how it was. I mean, in my neighborhood, it's really rough, man. And I feel like I talk about this a lot, but like in third grade, was it third grade? Yeah, it was third grade. Had this little Vietnamese kid, which was a part of my other little Vietnamese friends. They were all family, right? Like they all lived in this like complex. They were all fucking like, everything I learned was like through them. I'd go to their houses, like, you know, we chilled all the time. He got gunned down. He was like a little runner, a drug runner, and like third or fourth grade, he got gunned down. Like
Third or fourth grade.
yeah, and it was by some kids that were in eighth grade.
Oh,
And I feel like
Jesus.
that was the biggest like wake up call to be like, hey, yo, this is actually super crazy. And as I gotten older, I'm like, yo, that was really wild. Like that was not normal, you know? And not only did we have to like fear like gangbangers, we also had to fear like the cops too, because the cops were like ready to whoop your ass too. So like my neighborhood was super diverse. We had all types of nationalities. Like everyone was just there. We're all living life like it's, yeah. I wouldn't take it back, you know. Like I would do it all over again. But I do it a little bit different, yeah, maybe. But I would definitely do it again.
One thing I talk about a lot is I think traveling is good for a lot of people, right? Going outside of your bubble is really good for people.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying go to the fucking hood and risk your life. That's not what I'm saying at all. But understanding that there is more to life than what you see in your own bubble is great. You know, I've been to sketchy places, and it makes me think like, damn, I am very fortunate to be in a position where I don't need to live through that.
Yeah.
Day to day, you know? And it's not even just the good, maybe, I'm sorry, not even just the bad, but the good too.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like, as I travel and I meet more people of different lifestyles, whether they're financially doing better or worse, it tells me how bad things could get and how good things could possibly be. You know? And I take a little bit from it, like, okay, you know, there are really, really fucking rich people out there, wealthy people who've been born into money. I'll take everything with a grain of salt, right? I think it's cool that they have that, but I think it comes with its own issues too. I think being born into money has its own issues because it's really hard to be grateful for things that you haven't really worked for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think also being on the flip side, not having very much, it's really hard to understand that you have potential for so much more because what you're surrounded by tells you that. Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, to me, like as I grow older and I meet people from all walks of life, I'm starting to put less blame on people for how they are the way they are.
Yeah.
Right. Like the rich kid doesn't ask to be born into a rich family. The poor kid doesn't ask to be born into a poor family, right? Or the hood or whatever.
I really do feel that like whether you're rich or poor or in between, whatever the case might be, I think finding like that peace and happiness actually comes from within, you know? And I think that's a process that takes time. I think that's as big as like, or in the same vein as like finding yourself, you know? Because I understand that money is essential to live, you know, and that's cool. But wish there wasn't a thing. Money's not real. The concept of money is not real. People that have money, they buy like ridiculous things with it. Like, what's the point?
And we print money whenever.
Yeah, like we print the money. Like, I don't know, what's the point? Like, what if we all had an equal amount of money? Like, how would the world look then? Is that what communism? Like,
yeah,
I don't even know.
Supposed to be, yeah. That's the idea that everyone's.
Are they happy in those countries?
You know what? I don't. That's a topic that I'm not really versed in.
Yeah,
I do understand now. Going to like communist countries.
Yeah,
that is different than it was before, and I think that applies to anything else too. Whether it's capitalistic societies. That I think when it's extreme, it's not good.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the way I see it. I think the whole idea behind communism, you know, I'm from Vietnam, is that everyone's tried to be made equally as far as finances goes, but that means the government's like taking everything and controlling everything from you, right?
Yeah,
that means they have a hand in everything,
that you
which
do,
is not good, because I don't know how you feel about this, and I don't want to talk about too much. Yeah, but you know, living in today's day and age where we live, it's kind of hard to trust the government.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? it really is. You know what I mean? I it's funny because I talked about this with some of my family in Denmark. Yeah, right? And they live in Europe. And this is not to bash the U.S. because I love being here, right? Yeah. But we can't ignore the flaws that we have. But my family out there, they pay hella taxes. In Europe, you pay like up to 50%, probably even more.
Whoa.
Right?
Yeah.
But they have universal health care, education paid for, housing paid for. They told me, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone who's watching this, if you're homeless in Denmark and you apply for, I think, 4 jobs a month, they'll give you like 2,000 euros for trying. You know, like they take care of their people, and I think they have a trust in their government that we don't really. Yeah. They pay a lot of taxes, but they know where their dollars are going.
Can you imagine how good that government's got to be that they could trust it? Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's something that they've built up over time. You're not going to like, we can't trust our government. We see what they do to us, you know, we see how they treat us. We see how they treat the homeless people. How am I supposed to trust you with anything? You know, like for them, shout out to Andrew Yang. Because remember, he was trying to do the universal like income thing. I think that's going to be a great idea coming down the road, because at some point, algorithmic learning is going to take over everything, right? I'm not calling it AI because it's not AI. It's algorithmic learning. It does the Google search for you, and then it gives you the answers. That's what it spits out. Essentially, at some point, we will have AI, and at that point, we're not really going to need to do like the hustle and bustle of work. So what do we do for money then?
That's true. And, you know, to kind of get off of the political stances, I do believe that that's the case. And what I mean by that is, you know, when people, especially we live in the US of A, we talk about capitalism a lot, right? Yeah. And there's this huge flux of, I'm just going to say men for now, that believe that they should be the dominant alpha wolf, that is the CEO, that is the boss, that controls everything, right? Yeah. But people are also getting influenced to be like that more so.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's because, you know, money holds value. Yeah. Status. Like, I don't think it should, but it does, right? That's the society that we live in. Yeah. And I think that if everyone is the alpha wolf, then no one is the alpha wolf.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. We don't live in a society that's like that. And I think we put a lot of status on certain occupations, right? Like lawyers, doctors, engineers. And I understand, because it requires a lot to get to their position. Yeah. But at the same time, a lot of people fault people for working entry-level jobs to provide for their family. And I think that's insane. Right? Yeah. I think like you're working at the very least. You're trying to provide for your family. You're doing what you need to. Yeah. Like, give them respects, you know? Yeah. And that's wild that you have to be that. Can you imagine if everyone was a fucking doctor or lawyer, you know? Who the fuck would be doing the regular shit for you? And I think it's finally kind of getting to that point, right? Where it's like, not everyone could be that. Yeah. But if there is AI learning machines that are going to do the entry level jobs, and then those people are going to be out of a job, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to have to find something else to do. And I think we don't prioritize mental health and happiness as much over here. I think it's also because we don't fully understand it, or at least to our knowledge, right? I'm sure there are people professors who study that for their whole lifetime. But in other countries, they really pay attention to things like that. So they want to make sure that your fundamental needs are taken care of. You got a roof over your head. You could buy your own food.
Right. You could go see the doctor.
Community. You see a doctor. Those things are really important. Like it's not really emphasized a lot here. I mean, we talk about it, but we don't really try to educate people on it. So it's like, oh yeah, go figure it out yourself. And I think that's the root problem for a lot of things that are causing us issues right now, right? Like, I am still, to certain degrees, very financially illiterate. No, I'm not gonna lie.
Same.
Not gonna lie. You know what I mean? I'm not saying financially illiterate as in I just don't understand money, but my relationship with money is so toxic now. And I think I think a lot of people are, and I don't mean in terms of they just spend too much or anything like that. I think how money is tied into material things is also toxic. And I'm a big car guy, right? Like I love like a nice super dope car, but that's for the passion of a car, not for a symbol status.
You like the feel, the drive, like the things that kind of come with it. I think a lot of people might not like the status of it. There's some people out there that do, but maybe some people just really like a product because they want to be involved with that product, just to go back to this Andrew Yang thing and this like government stuff that goes, like they give them people housing and stuff like that. I really do feel that it's a huge missed opportunity in America because we create so much. It's a melting pot of people out here. Imagine if we got enough money to go see a doctor, a dentist, roof over our heads and all that other stuff. Plus the two that like, do you remember the pandemic? Like, I know for a lot of people, and this is controversial, but for a lot of people, like the pandemic was like the worst time of their lives. I understand that. I fully get that. For me, I was thriving. I was getting money and I was working on the things that I like to do without having to leave my house, without having to do any of these other things that I didn't want to really do. In that time, like the pandemic has, like within those years, I learned so much about my craft because all I did from the moment that I woke up to the moment that I went to bed was work on the stuff that I needed to work on. Like, I feel like I gained so much from that. Now imagine what that would do to people if they didn't have to go out and hustle and do work that they didn't want to do. Imagine if you had a little bit of money that came in every month so you could pay your bills, get groceries, all that other stuff. You would focus on the things that you would want to do in life. And in return, I do really feel that if people do the things that they're passionate about, the work is going to be better.
I agree with you 100%. And I personally think that to be able to identify that is very difficult in the society that we live in.
Absolutely.
Even your story, right? Because it's not sometimes a predicament of the society, but sometimes just human nature. And what I mean by that is like, even in your case, like, oh, breaking is not really my thing. Oh, that girl likes dancing. Maybe I'll start breaking.
You see what
I'm saying? Like there are other people's voices in our head sometimes. Whether it's like our parents or someone that we have a crush on. There's like this trend right now on social media where people say like, oh, I can't believe I did this when I was young because my crush told me that.
Oh, I've seen those. Those are crazy.
And it's hilarious the lengths that you go to try to impress someone. And I think that is one of the roots of the problem is that for whatever reason we feel compelled to impress people. Whether it's from a romantic level, like, oh, my crush, likes a guy who does sports, so let me join a fucking sports team, right? Or my crush, like I've done some shit that's questionable, when I was younger. I remember these girls that I had a crush on, they were like, oh, I like it when guys wear baby blue. So I bought like baby blue shirts, you know. I was like, what the fuck? I don't baby blue. Like, what the fuck was I doing? But that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
Your case is breaking. I'm sure other things that, you know, we don't want to embarrass ourselves about. But, you know, I think in the roots of it is to be wanted and to be accepted.
Yeah.
And we'll go like a distance to make that happen.
Yeah.
You know, because like imagine so a big thing going back to the whole car.
Yeah.
Is that, there are cars that are more meant for guys, right?
Yeah,
it's more like or at least like specific guys. Obviously, I'm not saying that women can't be into it. I think there are women who are fans of cars too. But there are cars that are not made to impress women, right?
Yeah.
There are cars that were rougher around the edges. That's like, oh yeah, you're gonna get a bunch of dudes complimenting you on this fucking car.
Like a boxy interior. Yeah, there's interiors that are meant for men. Yeah.
Or just even old school cars that now is not. It doesn't match the desire of the modern aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. But there are certain cars where it's people get it to impress the sex that they're interested in, right?
Yeah.
And let's talk about it from like a male hetero perspective, like women, right? Like there are guys who get cars so that they could get girls.
Yeah.
There are guys who dance to get girls. There are guys who wear baby blue to get girls. You know? And that is like innately us, like strangely enough, because, you know, I think we seek the validation and desire of the people that we're interested in. Yeah. You know, and it's hard to differentiate that sometimes. Being that where we're at right now. You know, and I think going back to what, sorry if I went on a little bit of a tangent, but like being able to discern between what we truthfully are passionate about and what's being fed to us is kind of hard sometimes. Yeah. Especially now, I can't even imagine, right? Now, all the things I'm into is because I've been exposed to it. And probably by 1 or 2 degrees of separation, meaning I know someone directly who did it, or I've been to something that surrounds it. Right. So that's how I got into it, whether it's dance, photography, or whatever. And the only medium that we had to get exposure from those things before was TV or radio. Right. And now it's like we have social media where they could tell you a plethora of different things that you could be into, that you could do. You know, when I grew up, I didn't know about millionaires and selling courses and shit like that. That wasn't like a thing. Yeah. Now it's huge. It's everywhere, and you hear it, and people think that's the right way to live because it's so praised. Yeah. Right. And I can see kids getting influenced by that. It's
Absolutely.
Like, is that really what you want though?
I feel like maybe kids just think that that's what they want because, you know, like you said, they're being influenced. And I feel like it's an exclusivity. Like it's a thing that you want to be a part of. Like I think everything, like you just said, like being validated, being accepted, I think that's the core of us as humans, right? Yeah. And I feel like outside of social media and stuff like that, and I feel like it's always been around, they make clubs so that you're not in, like, you're an outsider, and that makes people want to be more on the inside than ever. I don't believe in that. I think that's horrible. You know, like I feel like we're all human. We all want the same thing. And at the end of the day, there shouldn't be any exclusivity to anything. You know, everything should just be open to everybody. Then you could go in and be like, hey, look, do I like this? No, probably not for me. Let me go somewhere else. That person could find what they really want to do, you know? And I feel like as a society, we've always structured it as like you're either on the inside or outside. I think that's wrong.
How would you handle it?
That's a tough question because all I've ever known is what we've, you know, like the dogmatic lifestyle that we have because this is all we've ever known. Maybe the best way is just to keep all the doors open for anything, you know? Like, if someone wants to be a doctor but they can't afford it, then they should be free to go to school because education shouldn't be kept. You know, like that's a weird concept to me. A concept of you have to pay to learn to help society. That doesn't make sense. It's so engraved in our society, if that makes any sense. And if it doesn't, I'm sorry, guys.
No, it does. It is like that in America. It is. And again, not to like bash on America. I think it's just how we do things. This is the reality. We do fucking pay for school, right? Let's not deny that.
And
obviously,
we pay tons of money.
Yeah,
for
top
school.
dollar. You know, and then you go to like Denmark, and their tuition's paid for, right? They encourage that. And I think, you know, if I were to have it my way, right, it would be free, and people would have insights on how a occupation works before they dedicate so much time to it.
Right.
That's something that you talked about outside of the podcast, right? You mentioned that, maybe you could have like a follow along to this person's job and see what it's like. And something that one of my cousins talked about was he's a doctor, right? Yeah, go figure. But anyways, typical. But so he's a doctor, and he was mentioning how he's known for a very long time that he's wanted to be a doctor. That's something that's resonated with him since he was a child. But he's also, colleagues with people who also decide to choose that occupation. And they find out once they're thrown into the workforce after so many years of school and rotations that, oh shit, this career might not be for me.
This is not for me. Yeah.
But the thing is, you also now owe a staggering amount of debt
And now
that you cannot get out of if you fucking take an entry level job anywhere else.
Right.
So you're almost pigeonholed into committing to this career that could possibly make you very unhappy, right? I'm not saying that it has to be doctors. I'm saying this with anything that you do.
Yeah.
If we had more insight on how things work, maybe we would choose different career paths, right?
Right.
And I think, to kind of speak about that a little bit more too in general, is that I think we're in a funky phase in our time where things are starting to change. Like the idea of how careers should work is starting to like transition a little bit to where we could talk about pursuing our passion, right?
Yeah.
Because if we were talking about our parents pursuing a passion, if they looked at us, they'd be like, damn, you are privileged as fuck to be able to choose that.
Right. It's a completely different generation. My wife, her parents look at like creative work as like not a real thing. This is something you do on the side. In the same breath, my family looks at creative work the exact same way. They think that I should be working a 9 to 5 like they did, and that the American dream will happen. Well, that's not the society that we live in. Our parents were able to buy a home for $200,000, fucking buy bread for $1, eggs for $1. When I was young, and once again, I'm aging myself, Snickers were like 50 cents.
Damn.
Snickers were 50 cents. Like, yo, you go to the store now, you get a regular size Snickers. Like, let's say you're at the gas station, that's like $4.
Yeah.
It's not the same. Houses are $1 million. Like, we don't live in those times. And the commodity in this day and age is being yourself. So all we have is creative work. It's not the same. Like, it's not apples to apples. And trying to explain that to a generation that completely grew up different than us, my mom was religious. My wife's parents are super religious, all Catholics. To know that with the information that we have available to us at any point in time, we could look up what these religions have done to us as a society. If they were able to do that at a younger age, if they weren't so cemented in their thoughts now, I don't think they'd be religious. It's the lack of information that they had in their time. And another thing that I've learned too is that in their generation, everything was like passed on word by word. Like everything, there was no internet. There was no AIM. There was no like Facebook. What's the other one prior to Facebook?
MySpace.
There was none of that. We grew up learning and connecting with each other, right? They grew up, hey, so-and-so said that this place over here has got this.
Yeah.
Okay, bet. I'm going to go there. Everything was word of mouth, So that's why, like, that generation asks for our opinions on stuff, because they value the opinion of a human being. We value the opinion on what we see online. And, hey, God is great. Okay, cool. We're all in with God now, We're like, let me look up God. Nah, this ain't for me.
So, I mean, I'll touch base on this a little bit, right? So, like I mentioned, I'm not spiritual or religious, but I do think that there is a use for it. I think that's funny enough that you said like, oh yeah, because they didn't have access to the information. That's why they were still religious.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I do think that there are still religious people that are really young who do have access, and they choose to still believe in their faith, right? And I think it's an okay thing, maybe even a great thing, as long as their faith serves them. And what I mean by that is like if it does good, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think not everyone who claims themselves as religious is a good person. I think we all know that by now, right?
Yeah, they sometimes people use religion to get what they want, and look, not everyone's like that. I feel like my wife's parents are amazing people, and they're great human beings, and if they understood that whatever money they give to this church is using for other stuff, like the church has been involved, and these are not conspiracy theories because this has kind of been like, like the church was involved with laundering mafia money. They wouldn't be a part of that if they knew that. But if we were to tell them, they'd be like, these kids are just telling us bullshit, I don't know. It's weird.
It's like going back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, how do you differentiate between what's true and what's being told to you?
Yeah.
Right. There's so much noise in the world that really enough, I think people are scared to find out the truth.
Yeah. Sometimes it's better for them not to know,
Yeah. Sometimes I do think that's the case. Weirdly enough, again, it goes back to if there's usage for it, right?
Yeah.
Or if it can be of use. So, I've known a handful of people who have been troublemakers their whole life.
Yeah.
Who probably would have found themselves dead.
Yeah.
If they had not found God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, you know what? Not my thing, but fuck, dude, I'm glad you're still alive, and maybe that's what you fucking need, Yeah. And everyone, it's like a different thing, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a outlet like music or dance or religion or spirituality, I think as long as there's a use case for it for that person, then it works.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it goes back to what we're saying about like if everyone wants to be one thing, like alpha wolf, then no one's really alpha. And I think it's just like that. There's not one shoe fits all in any of those cases. People have to find their thing that helps them either just maintain their life or excel at it.
I really do believe that we're hardwired like to think of something greater than us. That's why we have presidents, kings, we have people that control things above us. Like I think we've all been hardwired from like the beginning of time to look at somebody as the leader. And I feel like religion does that in a way where for some people it's beneficial and for some people it's not. And like I think of a guy that's like serving a lifetime in jail. He's probably praying to God every single day. As I've gotten older, I've relaxed a lot more about this, but I really do not like religion as a whole, right? I feel like religion has caused so many problems. Like I really do feel that if it wasn't, and I could be wrong about this, but if it wasn't for religion, there wouldn't be so much hatred versus people that like same sex and stuff like that, because the Bible teaches you that, hey, you got to be with a man and you got to be with a woman, and that's how it is. And when we look at nature, dolphins are gay. That's really not how it's.
Yeah, I just found that out right now.
Like there's other species out here that are gay. Like, that's natural. And if it wasn't natural, since the beginning of time, people have been gay. Why are we going against that? Like it's no different from you choosing a vanilla ice cream or a chocolate ice cream. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And, I don't want to use religion as just like an umbrella term because I'll be honest, I'm biased as fuck, right? I'm not religious, but I was raised Buddhist, and for my bias, I think if you had to choose a religion that's like very neutral and like not very harmful to people, I would say Buddhism is probably the one to go to, And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That's just my belief. And here on this podcast, I believe we could be opinionated about things and not state it as facts, right? This is only a fact to me. Not to everyone else who's
exactly.
You can go into however you want to, but that's my belief.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why, like you mentioned, something bigger than themselves, I do think that's the case for even people who are not religious. And I'm gonna go into relationships from here, and to say what people want is they want to have faith or hope in things, right? And I'm not saying in terms of like religion, but the idea that life is very uncertain.
Yeah.
You don't know a lot of things that are out there, right? And you hope for the best, and you have faith that things will pan out the way they need to.
Yeah.
And I think that's a belief that plays into the roles of any kind of relationship that you have.
Yeah.
Right. Very similarly, when people go to church or any kind of religion requires them to donate money, I'm sure they hope or have faith that
it's going to go somewhere.
This could go somewhere that's of
absolutely.
use, right?
I really do believe that too.
Yeah. And that's why they do it. And very similarly, in human relationships between friendships like me and you, or a romantic one like you and your wife, like we have hope and faith that they have the best interests for us and they're the person that we want to be with.
Yeah.
But you don't know, right? You really
never know.
don't know. You can only live with this idea that you hope that it comes out the other side right.
And for me, I see the cup half empty when it comes to this, you know? We don't know what happens tomorrow. Like, we could be here today and be gone tomorrow. Like, something, you know, things happen to people. And I feel like we just, like, I hope for the best, but I just try my best better, you know, like, I'm just trying my best to do the best that I can with everything that I could possibly do for myself and everyone around me. And that's all I can do. That's, at the end of the day, that, like, my personal belief, that's all we can do, because you never know when your time is up, you know? So I don't want to worry about too much about what happens 10 years from now. I just want to worry about what's happening at this moment. How could I be my best self? How could I present myself in the best light for myself, for you, for everyone around me? And I live that deeply, like, even more in my house with my wife, you know, like, how do I show up for her every single day?
Yeah, no, that's great, because I think finding that balance is really, really fucking difficult. And there's this phrase, is the cup half empty or half full? Well, if you hold the cup long enough, you're gonna get tired.
Yeah.
So I think that's what people try to do, is always try and find this balancing act of, like, because if you think about the now a lot, it's people deem it as like you don't think about the future, right? As if like I have to live in now because this is the only thing that's for certain.
Yeah.
And you think about the future too much, it's like you're too optimistic that you might still be here, and that might not be the case. And it's a weird balancing act, right? Because you have like this roadmap of what you should do, and where you should go, and like how your relationships should develop. Yeah. But none of that is guaranteed. Well,
and look, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but if we focus too much on the future, right? Isn't that like kind of killing the joy of what you're doing at the moment? Yeah. Like, if we think, hey, we got to be millionaires at 23 now, you know, or we got to hit our first billion, quadrillion dollars at 31, like, the moment that you don't do that, now you're feeling a certain way about yourself, you know? What if we just try our very best, possibly the best thing that we could do every single day to try to get to those goals, but know that maybe those goals aren't achievable? I feel like that's more realistic to what life really is, you know? Because if you set yourself up for like a 5-year goal, you don't reach that 5-year goal. And some people are amazing, right? Some people definitely do that. I know I can't. I know I'm going to set these goals and I might not make it there, but I'll land somewhere close. And to me, that makes me happy, because at least I've gone to this place, you know? And by no means do I mean that I'm a slouch or I'm not working towards the things, because if you ask anybody that knows me, I am a workaholic. Like, I will work from the moment that I wake up to the moment that I go to bed. I love it, you know? I don't have a social life. I don't do anything outside of the things that I do to get better at them. And I think to myself, maybe at one point I won't have to work this way, or maybe at some point I'll play the video games that I want to play. And I don't know if that ever ends.
So, you know what? There's something that we have Flo on the podcast, and he said something along the lines of like, there are a lot of things that he's worked towards, and now they're coming to realization of it. Yeah. But regardless if he didn't achieve those things, he would still be doing the same thing, because he loves the process. And I don't think happiness is a destination.
Yeah.
It's the process.
Yeah.
You know, I think you have to go through these things that make you happy along the way for you to know where it's going to end in your lifetime.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's for certain, right? Because if you can't tell the future, at least you know you're happy now. And it's not so much of like you're happy now is like you're happy every single day.
Yeah.
But if your body of work is what makes you happy, and not body of work isn't actually like going out there working a career, but like the things that people could basically describe you as, you know, like Lester, he was a hardworking guy. He loved music. You know, he loved to push people around him. He loved good conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's what encompasses like a person's happiness.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of us know how to define that.
Yeah.
Because we seek for it in other people's validation.
Yeah. Right? And I feel like we're just hardwired for that, you know? And that sucks because other people's validations don't really matter, you know?
I think what it is, and this is going into the psychological side of it a little bit, was, you know, we are hardwired like that because that's what was required to survive, right? Where if people validated you, that means like they thought what you were doing was good and you had something to contribute to the group. Therefore, most likely they'll keep you around. But if you're actually more of a liability, they're more likely to let you go first.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
So, but we don't really live in a society where that's needed as much anymore. I think to a certain level, we still need validation, right? Because if everyone invalidates you, it's almost like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Right. So it's more so finding validation in the people that matter to you, or that's going to move the needle in your life.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think what's paralyzing a lot of people is seeking the validation of strangers.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most problematic thing about trying to find validation, especially in today's day and age, right? Where it's like you can get invalidated by people you've never met.
Yeah.
Right. And you could be validated by people you've never met.
Yeah.
So which one matters?
Which one do you choose to listen to?
Yeah.
Because people that are validated out there are also invalidated at the same time. Even if they reach the highest levels of whatever they're reaching for, they get validation, and they also get people that just want to bring them down too. And that's just part of it. So you get to choose which one you want to listen to.
I want to get into your idea of validation and when in your childhood you felt the most invalidated and also the most validated, and why you felt like you needed that, right?
Yeah.
And you're saying that when you were a child, you were left alone a lot.
Yeah, essentially, I was like a latchkey child, you know, like my parents worked, they were never home, so I just kind of did my own thing. At some point in my younger years, like grammar school, I was trying to play basketball. And I was like really trying to play basketball. I was like, man, I'm going to be the next Jordan at some point, you know?
Yeah,
I was really going for it. And then like second year of high school, like I literally stopped growing. And then I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to happen for me, you know? And I just remember like in grammar school, like there was like a championship game. Like we made it to like the finals or whatever it was, because whatever. And I asked my mom to come, and she's like, yeah, I'm going to come, da, 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 da. And she didn't make it. And I was like crushed by it. So that's got to be like the most invalidating time of my life, where I'm like, damn, was this not good enough? You know, like
Did you guys win?
No, we lost.
Fuck,
not only did
defeating.
not only did we lose, when I got home, I thought my mom was like at work or something. She was just tired, and she was just chilling, watching TV. And I was like, you didn't come to the game, we lost, da da da. I was so excited, just, you know. And she's like, yeah, I had a rough day at work, da da da. And as a kid, I don't think you realize that people, when they're older, they have rough days, you know. So I was like, man, that's bullshit, you know, like you just didn't want to come. And as I've gotten older, it's like, maybe she was just really tired, maybe she just didn't want to be around a bunch of people, like it was just too draining, you know. But yeah, I felt super like it didn't mean anything, even though I worked really, really hard with the team, which the team was great, you know, like we all worked really hard to get to this place, and we didn't make it. We were right there. And to me, being second place is worse than just losing, period. I'd rather lose right away than know to get so close that you're second best. Like that is the worst feeling for me.
It's funny that you mentioned that with your parents, because I think a lot of the desire for validation does come from parents, you know, to their children, because as a child, especially when you're really, really young during your formative years, it's hard for you to understand the nuance of things.
Yeah.
Right. If a parent were to leave you alone for a day or not show up to something that they promised, as a kid, being so creative when you're younger, you could think of all the worst possible scenarios as to why they didn't show up or were there for you when you needed them. Yeah. You know, and it could be as simple as like they were just tired. Yeah. They couldn't make it. And funny enough, you know, I'm Asian, and parents place a lot of academic pressures on you. I'm sure everywhere else too, but Asian parents definitely do it a lot. And what's funny is that, you know, my parents were always like, oh, you had to do this to become a lawyer or a doctor or make money and whatever. So school is very, very important. And when I was supposed to graduate high school, I didn't graduate on time. I actually had to take continuation school, which I actually got expelled from. And then take independent studies, which was a blessing in disguise, because damn, that's like accelerated learning. I think I got my diploma like 2 weeks after I took independent studies versus continuation school. But anyways, when I was supposed to graduate, my parents were so out of touch with my life that none of them showed up. And fortunately, because I actually wasn't going to graduate, but they didn't even know that there was a graduation going on. You know, and this is something that they put heavy on me when I was young, like go to school, do all these things, and my graduation they didn't show up. So it was weird. I was conflicted, right? Because half of me was like, thank God they didn't know I didn't graduate high school, because they would have killed me. The other half was like, damn, I thought they really cared about this shit. How come they're not here?
Do you think that it was more of like they were just busy, like they got lives to live, they got to feed you guys and work?
You know what? I think the word busy is so ambiguous. Right? We could be busy doing anything. Right? Fucking errands, doing your laundry, working your 9 to 5, pursuing your passion, school, whatever's. I think if I were to define it, they just didn't have the capacity to pay attention to what was going on in my life because they had so much going on in theirs. At this point, they had basically formed a new family because my parents are divorced and they both got remarried, right? And I don't think I was the main focus. As they, you know, had kids and, you know,
rebuilt their lives.
Like I get it now from an adult standpoint. You know, I think that's the way we should think about our youth, is that as we grow older, hopefully we understand the nuances of what's happening a little bit better. You know, when you're younger, it's like especially when you're super young as a toddler, before we can even speak, like we don't really know why these things are going on. You know, we just interpret it as like very human needs, right? Where it's like parents are there to show us attention or feed us. Right. Those things are very important. And if we're not getting fed easily in our brains, we can interpret it as something completely different.
Especially when we're younger. We could just be like, they don't like us. They don't care for us.
Exactly.
They're just going to run away. You know, like
exactly. Now, you know, and then we get into our teens and early adult life. And then we're like, oh shit, you know, they're just humans like us. And we find ourselves in that similar like predicament. And we don't have kids, but we still find ourselves in that same predicament with our friends and our family, right? We're like, oh shit, they want us to be there for this and that. And you realize how busy we could be caught up with everything.
And I wonder too, like for our parents, right? Like they weren't able to make it there or whatever. I wonder how their parents were to them when they were younger. Like, is this something that just continuously happened? When was it worse generations prior? Because when I think of it now, like if I had kids and my kids like, I got the championship game, this is important to me, come. Even if I'm like dead tired, I'm going to be there. You know, like maybe we don't repeat the same mistakes that they do. And maybe as a society in the long run, this is how we all get better, you know?
I agree with that. And I think we're just more aware of it now. You know, I think our parents' generation, their parents, is just more about survival.
Yeah.
Right. The other things are a luxury.
Yeah.
Right?
Everything
Showing
else
up to
is
my
luxury.
kids' game is like a luxury.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we're at this point where there is a lot of unpacking we need to do as far as the things that happened to us.
Yeah.
In our childhood, because we didn't talk about things like that.
Yeah. And maybe in a lot of ways it's privilege that we have, that we could like look inside and be like, hey, this is why we feel this way. And I feel like the privilege of having enough time to think about it. Maybe they didn't have that privilege. Maybe they had to work all day, all night, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
We get to think about those things and we get to express these things. Like, I can't think of my parents being on a couch talking to somebody else while it's being filmed and, you know, it's going to be shared to other people. Like, I don't think that's a real concept to them, you know? It's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, and I think that just comes with how we've kind of evolved as a society, right? Like, we're just still learning.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are things that the next generations get demons like, what the fuck? How come they don't understand this concept? And we're like, oh, damn, but just wasn't a thing during our time. Just like how mental health wasn't really a thing during our parents' time.
Yeah.
And even kind of during our time. That's why we kind of find it to be, we're in this like weird transitionary phase where, okay, we can kind of talk about this and it's still kind of taboo.
Yeah.
Like our parents would still tell us like, what the fuck? People our age still be like, I'm still figuring shit out, you know? I recently hung out with this friend and he's been gone for a while. And he mentioned some stuff to me that he's just trying to better his life and he's just trying to stay put and he can't really be out because he feels like he's going to cause trouble and he has no one to talk to about it because this is not something you talk about. You just handle it on your own.
Yeah.
And I think due to this podcast, I'm having more conversations than ever. And I encourage everyone else to do the same, you know, podcast or not. And I had to tell him like, hey, dude, like, I think you're doing fine.
Yeah.
You're doing good, man. Like, don't stress about it too much.
Yeah.
And don't focus too much on your past because that's what he's trying to do. He was trying to make up for all the things that he did in his past.
Got it.
You know, and I don't think that's a weight that you should carry for the rest of your life as long as you're making an effort to change. And he was like, damn, I've never had this conversation with anyone. Yeah. And it wasn't like he was saying much, you know, but there was so much being said in the few words that he said about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge introvert. Like, I don't really socialize, like none of that stuff. But I am a huge believer in talking to strangers because you get a perspective that you might have never encountered in your life, you know, and that perspective could change you. Whether it's good or bad, you're still gaining something from it, right? And I feel like podcasts in general, it's similar to that. You hear other people talk and you get their perspective, and in some way it helps you. In a lot of ways it can help you. In some ways you could be like, well, I don't really like that person, or I actually do like that person, you know, or I never really thought of this person that would, you know, and I'm a big believer that like these conversations do help people. Like any conversation helps people. Sharing personal experiences and seeing how we're not so distant. We're all kind of the same people, you know?
I think that's what people have us thinking is that we're so fucking different, but we have more in common than we are different, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, so I kind of want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Your wife is Vietnamese?
Yep.
Right? And you grew up around Vietnamese people. So there's a lot of understanding that happens there because you were exposed to Vietnamese people when you were younger.
Yeah, my whole life, man. It's insane.
So did that play a role into you getting to know your wife and the Vietnamese culture through the lens of a significant other?
No, not at all. My wife was the first Vietnamese woman I ever dated. Actually ever really talked to in that way.
Whoa. Damn.
Yeah. Like I grew up around these Vietnamese guys, and to this day I still talk to some of them, you know, like they're still my friends and stuff like that, but never once did I date a Vietnamese person. I was just there for like New Year's, I would have all the dry fruits when I would go over their house. I would smell the Nook Mom with the egg like at their house. Like, you know, like it's just culturally been a part of my life. And my wife and I, we never even thought about getting married. So our relationship just kind of started out as us hanging out. And from the moment that we started hanging out, we never stopped hanging out. So there was no indication that this was going to go anywhere. We move in together. We're still in the train of thought. Cause like when we first started talking, we told each other like, hey, look, I'm not looking for anything serious, nor am I looking to get married at any point in my life. I just want to wander around, you know? And I think starting our relationship in that way kind of opened up to like, hey, there's no expectations here. So we're just doing the thing, and every day closer and closer and closer. And we've worked towards what we have now. And eventually we got married, you know? There was no indication that I was ever going to be with a Vietnamese woman in my life. I never even thought it would happen.
Wow. So no expectations led to you getting married, huh?
Exactly.
Did you have a hard time, because now that you said that it's so different between just the culture that you've kind of grown up in, but now being married to a person of that ethnicity, do you feel like it allowed you to get closer? Because, you know, a lot of the things that keep people from being together is they're culturally very different. Yeah.
The biggest shock, and I think one of the things that like really stands out to me, is that back in Chicago, because I'm originally from Chicago, or we mentioned that, yeah. So essentially, my friend, his name was, you know, Tom Nugent. He never once corrected me that it was Win.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say someone's name incorrectly, even though I cannot pronounce it correctly. I still want to get it as close as possible. They never said anything about that, right? But culturally, we're the same people. Like, we all eat rice. We all have like different versions of food, but fundamentally we're all the same. Like, we both have parents that want you to do good in school. We both have like the same experiences, just in different households. And being with my wife and seeing that in a way where it's like, I'm actually a part of this family now, it feels more like that than ever.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So there's no real differences. And even for her mom, like, I think her mom thought that she was going to marry someone that was either Vietnamese or white, you know? So
yeah.
When she saw me, she wasn't accepting of me. She was like, oh, okay, now you're marrying a Mexican dude, which I'm not. I'm Guatemalan. So, you know, but to her, everyone is Mexican, you know?
Yeah.
And after like hanging out with me for such a long time, it's like, no, we're actually the same people. We do all the same things. It's just we've been divided. We think that we're different. We're not. And she's come around and she's like, oh, I like you. Da 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 da. You know, so
wow.
It's a very interesting thing.
So how'd you handle that when it first started? I'm sure as the relationship evolved, right? And you're like, oh shit, okay, now I have to meet her parents.
Yeah.
I'm not a white guy. I'm not a Vietnamese guy.
Yeah.
And she might not accept me.
Yeah.
So how do you approach that?
You're just yourself. You're just yourself. You show up as yourself, you know? I feel like parents could sniff out if you're not being yourself. If you show up as yourself every single day, you do the same things that you do as your person, as your character, they could either accept that or not. And that was the goal. Like, I'm going to be myself. Your daughter loves me and she married me for a reason. And if you don't see that, then I can't do anything for you. But I'm going to be the same person that I am. Her dad accepted me right away.
Oh, wow.
But the mom was like, I don't know, really? You know, he's brown. So like, and maybe not necessarily like that, but you know, like it took a while. And when she, like, things happened, like at some point, my father-in-law passed away. And her mom, we were already living out here. Her mom thought that I would just stay back and work. No, I was there with my wife the whole time. I was at the hospital 24/7. I brought them food. I did everything I could potentially do to make the situation better. And after that, it was like, oh, you really care for her and you care for us too. I'm like, yes, like I married my wife, but I also married into you. And it's a clear understanding that because I married this person, I'm treating you like my family. You are officially my family, you know, and I'm going to do everything I would for my family to your family because we're family now, you know. And I think her realizing that was like, oh, he's not bad. He's not a gangbanger. He's not going to kill me, you know, like,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Damn, that's funny that you mentioned the brown thing, because Vietnamese people are dark as hell too. If you go
Yeah.
to like Vietnam,
Yeah.
they're dark. But also in that same concept, Vietnamese people do, not everyone obviously, but a lot of Vietnamese people do hate on the darker skin complexion.
Same thing with Latinos.
Yeah, it's
Same
like
thing. Yeah.
while we're dark, it's actually they want us to be lighter. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it just shows some kind of status. Like, oh, you don't have to work that hard because you have money and you have privilege, and that's what they want their kids to marry into, right?
Oh, that's interesting because for Latinos, and correct me if I'm wrong out there, it feels more like, oh, you have more European blood in you, so you're lighter skinned and you're not as indigenous. That's always rubbed me the wrong way, you know?
Yeah.
So to hear that it's like a status thing where it's like, oh yeah, you're not out in the sun. I guess that would make more sense, you know,
Yeah.
like then, oh, you have more European blood, more conqueror blood in you. Like,
I mean, there's that too. There's people who think that too.
okay.
I mean, it's not just one thing or another, right?
I found out that North and South Vietnam are two different places, and that was weird to me. Not
Yeah.
weird, but it was like, oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was all just, you know.
No, dude, it's like the Bay Area and SoCal.
Yeah.
Pretty
which
different, you
I
know?
didn't know that. Yeah.
And I think in general, these people just have a hard time filling things out for their kids, you know, because a lot of what they want for their kids is not something they've had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The parents who want a lighter complexion for their kids because like they work hard and they don't want their kids to have to work as hard. And I think that's very common between a lot of different ethnicities, right?
Yeah.
And whether it's like they want them to date like a white person, it's also the same thing. It's like my parents didn't, marry into white people.
Right.
And maybe think it's like, okay, well, they have something that we don't have. You know, we've been struggling, so maybe that's better. I'm sure there's other things that go into it that I'm not super knowledgeable about.
Yeah.
But at least to my understanding, that was like the main core things.
Yeah.
And so awesome to hear that, her parents or her mom and dad accepted you, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure having at least one of them on your side from the get probably helped a lot.
I mean, the first interaction was so awkward.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they came over to our house, like it was so like they just looked at me and they're like, "This is who you're dating?" And I'm looking at myself like, "Yeah."
Did they speak English or were
they speak English? Yeah, they speak
like at that time because
yeah.
Vietnamese people do this thing where like they'll speak Vietnamese around.
Oh, they were definitely speaking Vietnamese, and then like at the time we had a very nice loft, we had nice cars, like we had everything that was like aligned with what it looks like to be successful. We lived in St. Louis at the time, so cost of living out there is super cheap. So we could afford things that we wouldn't be able to afford out here or say Chicago. So it looks like we're doing really, really good. So I think they were expecting a completely different person. I'm at the time, my hair is like past like all the way down to my legs, so I'm coming in like
breaking all the stereotypes,
and she's like, "You live with this guy here?" Like, I'm just like, "Hey, what's up, guys?"
Yeah.
It was a rough start, man. It was a rough start. And even as I say it's a rough start, I feel like other people probably had it worse, I feel like they try to understand and eventually they understood just by me showing up,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's a tough pill to swallow for some people, and in your case you did get a positive outcome.
Yeah.
I've known of some of my friends who their parents never accepted their significant other
till
their
know
deathbed.
how.
It's crazy. I think my friends who have been through that they've handled the best they could.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you know what? Like, I love this person, and there's nothing that's gonna change my mind about them, even if you don't accept them.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I feel like they do feel a for lack of a better word, like a feeling of regret because they never got to accept them because
Yeah.
their parents are no longer around, or one of their parents is no longer around. And I think that's just the reality of things. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
have the side that, great, like their parents accept you, and there's a side that they never do, and sometimes they cut you off from the family, and I think we
Right.
still live in that day and age where that is still a thing, and I think it's becoming less prevalent as we kind of become more of a melting pot,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
now like the people who are parents are like people our age, right? So
Yeah.
it's like a whole nother thing.
And to be fair, like all of her family accepts me. It's not just her mom. Like it's kind of
That's it.
crazy. I'm the guy that fixes all the stereos. So like they know I work with music, right? So they'll be like, "Oh, set up my home theater," and I'm like, "Wait, I came here to hang out and eat. Like I didn't come here to set up." But I have that is of value to them. I could come and fix whatever they need.
Yeah.
And I feel like because of that, they it's kind of crazy because it's like it feels like they do it so that I could be involved, but they don't take it as like this is actually work and I have to actually work right now. Like don't make me the Mexican guy that has to work right now.
Damn.
Like I want to eat, I want to hang out. Yeah, I want some Hennessy. Yeah, like but at the same time I'll do it because that, if I could provide a service or something that could benefit them and I could do it, why not?
And that's funny that you said Hennessy because that is a huge thing in
Yeah.
Vietnamese families, right? Like cognacs is huge.
Yeah.
Like that's another thing too. It's I've only dated Vietnamese chicks, not because
yeah.
that's my preference or anything. It's just what I've been exposed to.
Yeah.
But their family members accept me more when I could drink. I think that's kind of a thing for Vietnamese people.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, you could drink, you could drink cognac, you could hang out with the family. Like this is the only way we'll accept you, because if you didn't, it's like we'll look down on you. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. That's just how it is right now currently with the people that have been, had relationships with.
Yeah.
So that's funny that you said Hennessy, because I think in a lot of different ethnicities, we all have that one bonding kind of alcohol that does it,
Yeah.
What is it for Guatemalan people?
I'm Guatemalan, right? Yeah. But I am not really like tapped into my culture. I've never been tapped into my culture. And I feel like even in Chicago, there's a large community of Guatemalan people, but I was never accepted because I was the oddball dancer guy, So like you just said, like you never really picked who you wanted to date. Ethnicity wise, same for me. I never dated a Guatemalan girl. I've never been with a Guatemalan girl. And yeah, I've never really been with Latina girls. Like I've had white girls, Filipino girls, and one Vietnamese person that I ended up marrying, it's kind of like you don't really get to choose,
I mean, how long have you and your wife been together now?
Like 11, 12 years.
Wow. Yeah. That's a long time. How long until you guys got married?
About 6, 7 years ago.
Okay.
And let me tell you the reason that we got married, because it's not what you think it is. Most people will be like, I'm going to propose to my wife and this is that, and this, right? One day, my wife and I were watching TV and we realized we were watching something where someone got injured in a car accident and they were with their significant other, and the significant other that they had been living with for like 20 plus years couldn't be in the emergency room with them because they weren't married. And we're looking at each other like, so if you were in a critical car accident, I can't be in the room with you? Like neither of us believe in marriage. Like neither of us believe that this structured thing is for us. Like my wife and I, we don't think that way. But we saw that and we looked at each other and we had this conversation about like, if you were the last person I would ever see on this planet, it would have to be you. Like if I'm bleeding out in a room, I want you there with me. And we agreed that it's probably a better idea for us to be married because of that. We love each other so much and we care about each other so much that we have to play this game. And in this game, we have to be married in order for us to be together in a situation like that. And I know that's not normally how people like come about it, but that's how we concluded that we're going to get married.
What if it were the case that you could be in the room without having to get married? Would you guys?
Probably not.
Oh, wow.
Probably not. Marriage is just a piece of paper. And then, like, we know we're never going to be with anybody else. You know, we would have just like been doing the same thing that we're doing now without the piece of paper that says we're married.
So would you say nothing's changed since you guys got married?
Nothing. We're still the same people. We're still laughing. We have 3 cats. We hang out with our cats. We laugh every single day. Like, I could be overwhelming and annoying sometimes. So my wife still puts up with that, you know, so it's very chill, man. Like, our house is super chill. Like, we pride ourselves in not actually like arguing with each other. Like, we understand some people have good days. Sometimes you wake up on the bad side of the bed, give each other space. We listen to each other. I think listening is super important. And I've learned so much from my wife of things that I probably was not like really in tune with, as far as women, how like women get mistreated in workforces and just like the struggles that women have every day. And it's completely changed my mind, because as a man, you don't really see those things. As a woman, they feel it every day, and it's like, oh wow, like I didn't know it was like that for you. I'm sorry, you know, like.
Yeah. What would you say is the formula on how you guys keep such a healthy relationship? Because you guys have been together for a long time. Seems like you guys understand each other on multiple levels. I don't think that's something that's common. And I just say that speaking out from a statistic point of view. You know, a lot of relationships don't work out. You know, marriages don't work out. So there has to be something that you guys have that maybe you could let people know about, that they could use and apply.
If you go to the bank and you put money in the bank, that money is eventually going to grow. It's like a savings account.
Yeah.
You let it grow, right? In our relationship, we put in conversations about how we feel in this bank. Hey, I feel this way today. I love you this much. You put trust in that bank account too. And these are things that are earned. Like, looking back at all my prior relationships, I feel like as a guy, I thought all those things already existed in this bank. We started off with like $1 billion of those, right? No, that's not how it works. You put that trust, you put all this stuff into this bank account, and it grows over time. So if something critical were to happen or something, you could just go from that bank and pull from that, because they know they could trust you. They know that you have this amount of love for them and so forth, you know? Like, it's something that's earned and gained over time. Like, I DJ at night. I am around women all the time. My wife will never ever have to worry about that, because my focus is my wife. Like, all the things that I do is so that I could come home and be with my wife and my cats. Like, that's my main objective. I work so hard at all these things so I could be at home with them, you know? Her knowing that, I never get bothered with, hey, you're out too late or anything like that. That is earned. That is not something that happens within the first year of your relationship. Shit, it doesn't even happen in the first 4 or 5 years. That's stuff that just gets accumulated over time, and then it happens, you know? So that's kind of how I see it. It's like a bank account. You got to keep letting it grow. And the more trust, the more love, the more everything you put in there, the more she understands that too. And it goes both ways.
So now that you've mentioned that it takes time, it grows, and it's over a year. It's like 4 or 5 years even. What do you think about relationships that move really, really fast? Because it seems like you guys took your time, right? You guys,
absolutely.
understood.
We absolutely took our time. We had no expectations on it. You start like putting expectations on things, then you're going to want this outcome that you've made in your brain. And maybe the other person doesn't have that same outcome. So now you have conflicting outcomes. And if that happens, then who's really happy?
That's true. This is just, what the fuck do I know? I'm single, right? But anyways, I think that ideals that you guys build and grow together keep you guys stronger than ideals that are separate, and you guys hope that it meshes. If that makes sense, because I believe that people who have like a very fortified vision of what their significant other is supposed to be, and they're very rigid about it, and they're not willing to budge on this person, typically has a harder time finding that person, because this is like an imaginary figure of what they're supposed to be. And the reason why I say that is because one of my exes had an ideal man like in her mind, and I happened to be her first boyfriend, who also could not live up to the expectations of this ideal guy because he does not exist. And with lack of experience and exposure to different guys, how do you formulate this person in your head? It's just all through storytelling and just your imagination, you know? And you know, I think it affected me for a long time because I strive to be that guy who was not me in many different ways, you know? And I think that's you know how we talked about the crush thing and like how people did things for the crush. Like I did so much to fit into this image of this perfect man, and I could never ever fulfill that for her. And I gave up so much of myself to be that person, and in a way I felt like I lost respect for myself, and it took me years to gain that back. I was like, oh shit, is this who I really am? Or am I just being this person so this person stays with me? And that was like a tough pill to swallow for me, because you know, we all know people who lose themselves in relationships.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I feel like it goes both ways, right? Like women lose themselves, men lose themselves. Of course, they're trying to fit the mold of what the other person is. And at some point in time in our relationship, we both just kind of looked at each other because we were trying to do things for each other that we weren't like really into. And when we first started talking, I started talking to her because of her. Like, who I was with is her, and maybe some of the things that she likes I don't like, or stuff like that. You have to be able to see past that, because the person that you're with is going to be a complete individual. The idea that you form in your head, you have to let that go. It has to go away. In order for you to have a healthy relationship, you really, really, like, I tell my wife all the time, like, if you're not being you, then like, I don't know who I'm with, you know? Like, you have to be 100% you. Like, if you think the sky is purple today, then fuck it, the sky's purple today, you know? Like, whatever it is, like, I'm gonna validate any feeling that you have, and I'm there for you, for you. Like, you don't have to be anybody for me, you know? And in return, I feel the same way. Like, I'm not trying to be anybody else but the person that you know. And the person you know, you might agree with, you might not agree with, but this is the person that you're gonna get every day. And once that understanding really sank in for both of us, because it had to happen for both of us, you know?
Nice. So it sounds like you guys cultivated that, right?
It's over time. It literally, like, I'm not going to tell you that, you know, we live happy lives. We're happy. Like, we always joke around, like, if we won the lottery, nothing would really change. Yeah, we get a bigger home, probably a cat sanctuary or something, like, you know, like something weird like that, but we would have more time to hang out with each other. And I think of TV sitcoms, and I think of like things that like the TV has shown us from like the 90s, 2000s, and like the husband's always like, that's my ball and chain. Like, it's something negative towards like the woman, you know? That sucks, because us as guys, like, whether we like to believe it or not, it's engraved in us, you know? And it's like, oh, I'm married now, I can't live my life, or you know, I got this woman that's gonna call me all the time, stuff like that. That's not really life. If you don't want it to be life, that won't be your life, you know? And at our house, like, we don't do any of that. My wife's hanging out with her friends from work today. She's probably going to be out with them all night. Please enjoy your time. Enjoy your time. If you guys get too drunk, I'm going to come pick you up. You know, like, I'll come drive all you guys home, whatever you need from me, because I'm your partner. And as your partner, I'm there for you 100%.
Oh, that's awesome. Now that you've gone through that and you've tested it and it works, how do you even start that conversation?
Organically. Everything is organic, man. If anything is pushed upon each other, we'll know it. will know it, and you could sniff it out. Like, you could sniff out if things aren't organic. And it's like a very peculiar case because you don't start off with no expectations. You don't meet people where you're like, this is what I want in life. This is what I don't want in life. You know, my wife, when we first started talking, she thought I was like a womanizer and like,
Damn.
you know, from stuff that she had heard. As soon as she gets to meet me as like a person, she's like, wait, that's not really you, is it? I'm like, nah, it's just an illusion of what people think I am. Like, it's not really, this is what you're seeing right now, this like nerdy dude in front of you that's telling you about like some weird shit. Like, yeah, that's me. That's literally what it is.
So for me, I've noticed that it's really hard to be authentic in a lot of romantic situations, just because typically everyone's approach is to show the best version of themselves, right? And that usually means like the least flawed version.
If you do that, right? And maybe this is another thing too. It's like I've always had to show my like real version of myself. Like whatever illusion or things people say about me, that's what they think about me. But if I showed up as my best version, right? And then a couple days later, I am not that version, then we've already lied in this relationship. Whether we decide to believe it or not, it's already started off on the wrong foot. If you come in as like the person that you are every single day, don't know exactly what to expect, you know? And look, I'm no relationship advice. I feel like my situation with my wife is like winning the lottery. Like, it's just very rare. It kind of happened that way. Like, if I were to do it all again, would it happen the same way? I don't know. I understand more about women now. And yeah, like, I don't know if it would happen the same way. But the moment that you're out there presenting the best, you have to be the best self every single time you see this person. How hard is that?
It's exhausting.
You know? Yeah. Exactly. You don't want to go into something that you're going to be exhausted playing a role. Like, just be yourself.
Yeah. Next time I'll remember not to wear that baby blue shirt.
Or wear it, you know, whatever you feel comfortable with that day, you know?
Yeah. We talk about relationships all the time on this podcast because that's what we're about. And I don't want any of the guests to feel like we're here to give relationship advice. I think it's just your story of the relationship that you have or have had. You know, I think that's really what it is we can all pick gems out from every story.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to use this as the end all be all of how relationships should work. And I think
all relationships are different. Like, what I'm saying is very particular to my thing. Do not take any relationship advice from me.
I remember that.
Like, this is just kind of how it happened to me, and it could happen to people in very different ways. You know, every situation is different, and it's carved out the way it's carved out by what happens in those things. You know, I'm just sharing my version of it.
Being that your family didn't really accept a creative career as something that's feasible, and then you also marry into a Vietnamese family who probably has very similar thoughts. How did you overcome the fact that they weren't accepting of that initially?
My parents are deceased now. I don't know if anything ever really would have changed that, at least for my mom, right? Like, I brought newspaper homes. She's seen me on like the TV stations there. Like, I was doing things at a higher level back in Chicago when I was doing them. I've done all types of stuff. At some point, I was breakdancing for the Chicago Bulls. So like, I'm like, here, Mom, look, check this out. Here's my back passes. Like, this is what it looks like down there. My mom's like, cool. Are you making $1 billion yet? And like, no. Like, does that really matter? Like, look at this stuff that I'm doing. It's cool. It's exciting to me, you know? And now I have a similar conversation with my wife's mom, because she thinks that if I'm doing music, then I'm supposed to be the next Pharrell or something, and I'm supposed to have $1 billion and run Louis Vuitton. That's not real life. That's somebody that's achieved this in this one space, you know, like it doesn't really have to be like that. I think the explanation that you're an artist and there could be two sides of this where you could have a bunch of money or you could not. That's not a realistic thing to them. And I explain that all the time. Like, look, I could potentially be a millionaire one day, or I could potentially have nothing. And I will live a normal life, driving a normal car, in a normal house, or maybe not even a house because we can't afford them. So, you know, like, I don't know what comes next. What I could tell you is that I'm happy. And that's what matters to me. If you're not happy with my happiness, what can I say?
Sounds like you're very accepting of things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that is because you might not be able to be happy with yourself if you allow these kind of thoughts to be always like wandering over you?
I work really hard at the things that I do. So hard at the things that I do that I feel like if it's meant to happen for me, it will. If it's not meant to happen to me, then I've enjoyed the journey of learning. I've enjoyed the journey of doing these things. Like, I'm okay with it either way. You know, whether I leave something behind on this planet or I don't, I existed here for 70, 80 plus years. We all did. For the most part, none of us will be remembered, but at least I was happy in my time.
And this is just an idea of mine, and you could tell me if you disagree or not. But going back to the idea of like the process being pretty much the most important part, because it's the part that you spend the most time with, that you can continue after, because your goal, once you reach it, it's on to the next thing, or you already moved past it, right? But the process is important because that's the thing that you live with the most. And I think in relationships, there is a saying when people break up, when you ask them about, hey, how's it going with this person? And if you break up, typically the answer is, oh, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And I believe that if you got any value out of the relationship that didn't mess you up for future relationships, it's like a net positive that you're with the person, that it did work out, that you're just not together anymore. Right? Because the process is something that you got a lot of value out of. I think a lot of people think of the end goal, and if the end goal doesn't match what they expected, then everything is a waste. And I think right then and there, it tells you your approach is wrong. Right? Because if you didn't reach your end goal, but everything else was amazing along the way, and you got so much value, you've grown so much, I can't say that it didn't work out. I would say that it worked out fine. And if anything, it primed you for the next person, right?
Yeah, you've learned experience, whether it didn't work out or it did work out, or if it didn't work out, you still got that experience, and that experience, you could move it on to your next relationship, you know? Saying that as well, like, my experiences with having prior relationships, I could honestly say that, like, I probably didn't look deep enough inside myself to fix those things, but I also didn't really care enough to fix those things too. I was a lot younger, I was a lot more reckless, and I just did the things that I wanted to do. I mean, to this very day, I still do the things that I want to do, but the difference is that in this relationship, we've cultivated care and love, and I know that my wife is in front of all the things that I do, and her, what's the word I'm looking for here? I run things by my wife to make sure that she knows that she's involved, because she's literally involved in everything that I do. And like, even if I'm working on music in the room by myself, she still gets to come in there and she still says, hey, I don't know, that's kind of weird. Or, oh, that's interesting. Or, hey, that's good. Oh, I think you got something here, you know? Because she's in the forefront, you know? I lost my train of thought. I don't know where I'm going here.
I mean, we circled back to it,
Yeah.
but basically, yeah, I was just saying that, if the goal is the only thing that matters, I feel like that's kind of indicator that you're going the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Because if you don't enjoy the process, I think that's an indicator that you're going the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Imagine if you're fighting just to get married, like you have to fight tooth and nail just to get married.
Yeah.
That tells me that you're forcing the problem.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of people out there that fight tooth and nail and then have kids. They
Yeah.
throw kids in the mix on top of it, and yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, it is because one of the, I think this applies more to marriage, but I'm sure there's certain principles that you apply towards kids too. We had a lawyer come on, and she said that she's a divorce lawyer, family attorney, and she said that getting married should be as difficult as it is to get divorced, because very similar to having kids, it's you don't have to be qualified to get married or have kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone could run into it,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you guys might not be right for each other, but I do think that people would be more reluctant to take a jump just off of pure faith.
Yeah.
And going back to just the idea of marriage, right? Like you sound very confident that you guys are the only ones for each other, right? And that is built on a system of faith and trust that took years to get there. So that in itself is a body of work that you guys have cultivated in order for you guys to feel safe enough to commit to the degree that you guys do. I don't know if that's possible for people to do in a short amount of time.
No, I don't think so either. But then when you think of those people that have arranged marriages, they've never met in their lives, and then they have healthy relationships for the rest of their lives. There was no expectations. There was nothing there. It was just this agreement or arrangement that you're going to get married to this person. Now you guys meet, and now you guys have to grow. So I don't know. It's weird.
That's also true. I do think though the difference is in an arranged marriage versus one that you've decided for yourself, and not in all cases, but in some cases, that the foundation is built differently. In a arranged marriage, it's not built off of love and emotions.
Right.
It's built off of a expectation of stability and something that you can nurture and build together. And I think that goes back to the things that you were saying, like these ideals were, these people who are strangers, they built this up from the ground,
right?
Literally from nothing, right?
Yeah.
From not even knowing each other, and it leaves their whole life like intertwined. And weirdly enough, I did hear a statistic that they're more likely to stay together in a marriage than people who decide to get married on their own.
Right. That's how,
I think expectations are different.
Expectations, yep.
That's why they were talking about this. And, again, I don't want to leave everything up to numbers because I think everyone's experiences are different in their own, right? But being where you are now, I want to ask you, as a person who I think is very inspiring, that you chase the things that you love, your passions, and you still do till this day.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah.
I think one of the things a lot of people have a hard time with is balancing that with a relationship.
Yeah.
So in your case, again, this is not looking for advice. I just want to hear your story. How did you keep that alive at the same time keeping your partner involved in the things that you do?
Man, like I said, I work day in and day out. But when it's time to hang out with my wife, phone to the side, or if I'm like on TikTok or something, we could be next to each other, but that time is reserved for her and I. And that time is precious to us. We could cook, we could be watching trash TV, we could be engaged in any type of activity, but it's just me and her. And in that time, it's so bonding, it's so great, and it's like an escape from like your actual day-to-day, And what we've been together for like 11 years. It's been like that from the start. Like most people that by 11 years, they're like, I don't want to hang out with my wife or my girlfriend. No, I'm all about it. So, and she is too. And we want that time. And when we get that time, it's the best time. So we do all the work during the day. Even if it's not a lot of time at the end of the night, we're still hanging out, doing the one thing. And that's how you balance it. And I don't know if that's the best way to balance it, but that's how we balance it at our house. And it works. It works for us. Like, we wish we had more time to do other things, and at some point we will. But yeah, the time for us is the time for us, and it's great. It's amazing.
That's something that I've thought about a lot when I was dating, is that you have to set aside that time for your significant other. And for a simpler way of saying things, I think you should constantly always date each other.
Right? Oh, forever. Forever.
No matter how long you've been together, constantly date each other.
Yeah.
Prioritize each other. Make time for each other to feel seen and safe. And that doesn't mean that you guys have to be the most productive, right? Sometimes it's just laying there around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just watching trash TV, things like that you guys enjoy, and that you guys are not feeling like you're reluctant to do this thing. Because we have those moments, right? Because relationships are a compromise, and sometimes there's things that your significant other wants to do that you don't want to do, right? But understanding that, and that's separate than the time for each other.
I definitely feel like I just started dating my wife. It feels like that every single day. I'm excited to see her. I'm excited to hang out. I'm excited to laugh with her. I'm excited to share any experience. I'm excited to go see a bad movie, a good movie, or something we could talk about. I'm excited to have a meal with her. That's never changed. From the day that we started talking to this very day, I'm still as excited as day one right now. And I feel like if I wasn't that excited, would we still be together? And she feels the same way. She's always excited. We're always like, yo, it's time to hang out. Let's go hang out, If at some point you don't feel that way, maybe you stop dating each other. And maybe that's when it kind of goes downhill. Maybe you get too comfortable and you're like, hey, I don't really want to date you because we're already together, And I feel like maybe I've had that in prior relationships where I'm like, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. I'm going to go cheat. I'm not the best relationship guy until I met my wife, I've definitely been a cheater. I've definitely more for myself about anything else. But in this particular relationship where everything is so special and I'm so deeply embedded into it that I can't even imagine doing something like that now,
Oh.
So I've been on both sides of the track here. I've definitely not been the best boyfriend to ex-girlfriends. Sorry. I really apologize, and I've grown, but yeah, I'm definitely not the best boyfriend.
Oh, that's awesome that, because I do hear that where people have bad past, because we all make mistakes, but for this certain person to make you feel like you're worth it. They're worth it. And you're able to, cultivate this relationship where none of those things even matter. And maybe you did learn lessons, and that's why you understand that you don't want to bring that into this relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything negative, anything bad that I've done before, or anything that would be of cheating, anything like that, none of that gets brought into this. This is too sacred to me.
I think you used the perfect word to describe it. Your relationship needs to be sacred to you. I think that's what it is. It's not about the marriage, it's about how you view it, right? And if you view it that way, then you'll do everything that you need to protect it, right? And I think that's awesome that you guys have found the direction where you guys need to go in order to kind of keep it going to where you guys could be excited every single day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that will change as far as because I truthfully believe, and I'm not imposing this on you guys' marriage, but let's say there's another relationship where everything. They've been excited forever. You know? I think that very similar to your analogy of the bank or the savings account, on the times where you guys are not excited, that you guys could pull out of that. That memory or that little bit of trust or that track record, you know, that receipt of like, no, I understand that it's hard right now, but look what we've gone through.
Exactly. Right? You could always pull a little love from there. Like sometimes like my wife will get up on the wrong side of the bed, and at first, and even for her too, like this goes both ways. We might get on the wrong side of the bed. We might have a long day. We might have heard news that we don't really want to hear. And we might be a little off-puttish, right? Like we might not want to talk. We might not, you know, we're feeling a certain way. At first I used to think, oh, that's got something to do with me. Now I think, oh, that's got nothing to do with me. I'm just going to give her space. I'm going to give her time. I'm going to give her whatever she needs. Then I'm going to go to the bank, and I know how much love is there for me. So when it's time for her to come back around, I'm going to be for her right there, hands, like arms wide open, just ready to, like, you know, hear her out or whatever she needs. And I feel like the analogy of the bank, that's really what it is. Like you could go there from the source and just know that it's safe. Everything's good. You know, like if there's an indication there's something's bad, that's a whole different story. But I'm yet to go through that, you know, so.
I think that would go back to the analogy of the bank, where it would go bad is if you're just depleting the account and you're no longer making deposits.
Exactly. And that's why you always have to make sure that you're depositing, even in the smallest ways. Sometimes, like, I haven't done this recently, but my wife likes like fruity snacks, right? So like snacks that have like, you know, sugar around them, like Sour Patch Kids and stuff like that. I'll do little things like I'll leave a box in the car for her before she gets there to go to work. Stuff like that. Like little things that she knows I'm thinking of her, and I'm always thinking of her, and I want her to know that I'm always thinking of her too, and I think that makes her feel good too, you know. And it's sincere. I'm not doing it because I'm trying to fill the bank right now because things are rough, you know. I've been doing this is how I feel about you, and when times do get rough, you can remember that too.
That's actually pretty good advice. I think throwing little instances of reminding her and showing her that you care, like, you know, on a constant basis is great, especially if you could also have like a big thing too, you know. I think you have your celebrations in life where it's like bigger than most, but never forget the small little things that keep you guys, it's like that's like the glue that keeps you guys intact.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And I think that's what people forget, because I've noticed a lot of relationships that end up falling apart is because, I mean, there's many reasons, but one of the main reasons is that they work towards this really big goal, right? Where it's not near, it's far, like down the line. And that's the only thing they strive for, that they forget all the reasons why they were together in the first place. And it almost feels like you don't get any reward until you get to this point, right? Whether it's like buying their first house or having kids or graduating from school again. You know, like there has to be things in between that makes you feel fulfilled and happy to make it seem like it's all worth it. If all you're getting is like the end goal, it almost feels like, will we even get there? And putting those little deposits along the way is kind of a reminder, like, I'm here for you. And you're here for me.
And when you think about it, like, imagine if you're just having like a regular day, you're about to get in your car to go to work, and there's something there that you like. Imagine how that would make you feel. That'd make you feel good, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're a guy or a girl, that stuff makes you feel acknowledged, like you're there, you know? If people were to do more of that in relationships, I feel like things would be a lot better. Like you're always on top of their mind, you know, like you're always doing something to like show, hey, I'm still here. Like, you know, I care about you, or I love you, or here, I hope your day gets better. This is a surprise. This surprise could go a long way, because she's done that for me, where I'm like, oh, cool, there's Gatorade here right now? Like, this is amazing. Oh, look, a $4 Snickers, you know, like, she knows how much I like Snickers. So like, yo, there's a Snickers here. This is amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And that puts a smile on your face, whether you're having a good day or a bad day. Either way, it shows something, you know?
Thank you for sharing that, dude. I love hearing this about your relationship and how you guys function. Like, I don't know your wife that well, but she sounds like an amazing person. You guys
Most amazing person ever.
Yeah, dude, I'm not gonna argue that, you know. But thank you for sharing, man. And hopefully, this story and how you guys produce this relationship of yours is something that people could take little gems from and implement to their relationships. Because I think some of the things, while it's not advice for everyone, I do think some of the things that you said is very crucial to relationships in general, and people could take something away from that. So
yeah,
thank
I
you, man.
hope you guys do. I hope I hope it makes sense. You know, I think everybody's relationship is completely different, you know, and I think the way that those relationships kind of like grow are all going to be completely different. Like we all grow up differently. Relationships all grow in their own way too. It's just how to maneuver that trajectory while showing love all the way. Because you're right, the whole milestone thing, like, yeah, imagine having a relationship and it's work, and I'm out, here's the kids, go take care of that, go take care of this, and now we got a house. Yay, that moment, that fleeting moment of happiness, gone as soon as the house is like a year or two old, you know? It's like getting a brand new car. Like the first week, you're like, yo, I got the sick car. 3 months later, it's like, oh yeah, I'm just driving. Same thing.
So I asked these questions a couple times. I'm trying to figure if I should tailor it to the person or ask the same questions for everyone, because I think it applies to everyone.
Yeah.
So my first question is, what makes you specifically you? What makes Lester Lester?
I think all of my experiences in life, whether good or bad, cultivate who I am today. And that's essentially it. You know, like there's no other way around it. I can't think of any other way. It's just I am a collection of all the things that have happened, good or bad.
And for my second question, what was a monumental event in your life? And that's something good or bad.
So when we moved out here from St. Louis, and we had an SUV and we had a hitch attached to it. And my wife was driving the car, and we were in Arizona, and we were moving from St. Louis to here, and it was super sunny, and we were going up a mountain. And mind you, like, we're from the Midwest, so we don't have mountains. We don't go up mountains. That shit's already fucking scary, right? The sun was coming down. It was like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever. And the sun was so bright that everything just looked white. So my wife started slowing down. And behind us, a semi-truck he didn't slow down at all. He couldn't see us either. Oh, yeah. So he didn't slow down at all and just hit the hitch. Like we flew off the highway. This is all of our possessions. Like our cats are in the car. The hitch got destroyed, everything in the hitch. But luckily, because we had that hitch on the car, nothing really happened to us in the car. If that hitch wouldn't have been there, I don't know if I'd be here today. Her or I. And she was driving. She felt so bad. Our cats were in the car. She was like shaking and like she was like it was a traumatic moment, you know, like we could have died right there. Our cats are super scared because they were just all sleeping in there. And I look at her and like just like I give her this huge hug and I was like, yo, we're alive, we're good, like nothing else really matters, you know. And that was a huge deposit in the bank, you know, because these things that like we own, none of that matters. All of that could be replaced, but us, like our core, our cats, us, me and her, that can't be replaced. And as long as we walked away with that, we're good. Nothing else matters.
Last question is, how do you want to be remembered?
Back to my wife. I tell her this all the time. If there's anything I ever want to be remembered for, is how good I was to my wife. Like any memories, it's just how good I was to you and how hard I worked to be the best husband that you could be so that you don't have to be in a relationship with someone that doesn't treat you well. Simple as that. Not for my music stuff, not for my dancing stuff, not for any of that. That stuff comes second to me. Just the stuff with my wife.
I just want to say a special thank you to Lester coming out. I'm always glad to catch up with you. And man, you said a lot of things that I feel to the core of me, even though I'm a single dude, but I just believe in the honesty in which you brought,
Thank you, man. And thank you so much for having me on, man. And thank you for doing this. This is great. Like, I think people hearing this and you just taking the time out of your day to do this is just really thoughtful, and it's really good, so thank you.
Of course. Yeah, thank you, man. Special thank you to the audience for watching all the way through. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and comment what you guys want us to talk about next time. And remember, live fast, eat ass.